Welcome, everybody, to another episode of On This Day on the Gruely Truth Sports Network. I'm your host for On This Day, Mike Goodpaster. Today we're going to talk about December the 31st, 1972, as the Miami Dolphins run their record to 16-0 with a 21-17 victory over the Pittsburgh Steelers in the AFC Championship game. Now, you may want to ask why this game was played in Pittsburgh, which it was. NFL rules up until 1975 dictated that home field advantage would be swapped according to the division you're in when it came time for the playoffs. So Pittsburgh was 11-3, Miami was 14-0, but Miami was forced to travel to Pittsburgh. Now, the Miami Dolphins had gone undefeated through the regular season and were looking to move on to the Super Bowl as they faced the Steelers for the AFC Championship. The Dolphins had immediately benefited from the arrival of Don Shula as the head coach in 1970, reaching the playoffs in each of his first two seasons and winning the AFC Championship in 1971. It seems as though they were in trouble at the start of the season when in Week 5, Bob Greasy went down with a broken ankle in the fifth game. But to the arrival of the team came a 38-year-old backup quarterback by the name of Earl Morrall. Now, Earl Morrall stepped in and kept the club winning, and the history of Earl Morrall was, this is a guy that helped get the Colts to Super Bowl III when Johnny Unitas got hurt, so this wasn't your normal backup quarterback. This wasn't A.J. McCarron. The ball control offense that the Dolphins ran made it a lot easier to be able to win with a backup quarterback. They set the record at the time that year with 2,906 rushing yards, with fullback Larry Zonka and Mercury Morris, who was at the halfback. You also had Jim Kick. So Morris and Zonka both ran for 1,000 yards. And when the Dolphins needed to go to the air, though, they had a Hall of Fame wide receiver in Paul Warfield. And he was one of the best deep threats in the entire NFL. You had the no-name defense. In reality, they had plenty of outstanding players. Guys like Bill Stanfill, middle linebacker Nick Buoniconti, Vern Den Herter, who's excellent at getting after the passer. You had a great safety tandem of Dick Anderson and Jake Scott. And after going 14-0, Miami had won a close, hard-fought battle against the wild card team from the AFC Central, the Cleveland Browns, to reach the conference title game. Now, the Pittsburgh Steelers, on the other hand, were a team coached by Chuck Noll. They were more of an up-and-coming team that was in the postseason for the first time since 1947. And after going 11-3 during the regular season to top the AFC Central, Pittsburgh won a hard-fought divisional round game over the Raiders thanks to that astonishing, immaculate reception that we talked about last week on this day, scored by, of course, running back Franco Harris. Harris had rushed for 1,055 yards as a rookie, while third-year quarterback Terry Bradshaw continued his development. The defense was especially strong. The Steelers, from 72 through 76, 77, were more of a defensive team. Where you get to Super Bowls 13 and 14 to 78, 79, they were a team that could drop 35 on you as Terry Bradshaw matured. And they had a great wide receiver core by then of Lynn Swann and John Stallworth. And when you look at this team, though, in 1972, the first half of the 70s, this was dominated by defense with Mean Joe Green. You had a pair of outside linebackers in Jack Ham and a very underrated Andy Russell. A group of DBs that included a rising star and cornerback Mel Blount, who, for my money, was the best cornerback I've ever seen play the game. And a source of concern coming into this game, however, was that several of the players, including quarterback Terry Bradshaw, were battling the flu. And there were over 50,000 people in attendance at Three Rivers Stadium on a 63-degree day in Pittsburgh. Wonder if they were crying about global warming back then, because it was 63 on December the 31st, 1972 in Pittsburgh. But the Dolphins had the first possession, and it ended with strong safety Glenn Edwards intercepting an overthrown Earl Morrall pass that he returned 28 yards to the Miami 48. Pittsburgh came onto the field and moved methodically in 10 plays, the majority of their work being done by Franco Harris. They faced a 3rd and 2 at the Miami 3. Terry Bradshaw ran around left end, but bubbled into the end zone when he was hit by safety Jake Scott. Offensive tackle Gary Mullins, though, recovered for a touchdown, and when Roy Gerela added the extra point, the Steelers suddenly had an early 7-0 lead. However, the problem with the play was quarterback Terry Bradshaw was shaken up on the play, and Terry Hanratty had to come in and play quarterback when Pittsburgh next got the ball. Now, the teams exchanged punts, and as the first quarter ended, the Dolphins had a first down at their 43 after a moral throw to tight end Marv Fleming picked up 15 yards. The series stalled at the Pittsburgh 42, but Larry Seipel lined up to punt. And probably one of the pivotal moments of the game because Miami's offense had been incapable of all day so far of moving the ball. You know, Seipel lined up to punt. He caught the he caught the Steelers napping, basically. He catches a snap and takes off 37 yards all the way down to the 12. 2 plays later, Earl Morrall throws a pass to Larry Zonka for a 9-yard touchdown. Gary Yepremian comes in, adds the extra point to tie the score. Now, neither team was able to get out of its own end of the field for the remainder of the half, and as they traded punts, the half came with the game still tied at 7-7. Now, Pittsburgh took the second half kickoff and drove into Miami's territory. On 3rd and 3, Hanratty completed a pass to tight end John Mackin for 22 yards and followed up with a throw to wide receiver Ron Shanklin for 24 yards to the Miami 37. The Steelers got another big gain, this time on a draw play to halfback John Frenchie Fuqua, and he ran for another 24 yards, and the series finally stalled at the 7. Roy Gerela came in and booted a 14-yard field goal to put Pittsburgh back in front by the score of 10-7. Now, when the Miami offense came on the field, remember, the Miami offense had done next to nothing here. If it wasn't for the fake punt, they probably don't even have any points early in the third quarter. With that being the case, Bob Greasy was inserted at quarterback for the first time since Week 5. And after 2 short running plays, Greasy's first pass since Week 5 was hitting Hall of Fame wide receiver for Paul Warfield for a 52-yard gain down to the Pittsburgh 24. The Dolphins got a huge break on the next play when linebacker Jack Ham intercepted a pass, but it was nullified by an offsides penalty on the Steelers. The series continued and ended with basically, the series was an 11-play, 80-yard drive that ended on Jim Kick taking a pitch-out running 2 yards for the touchdown. Yepremian added the point-after attempt, and Miami was up 14-10. The teams exchanged punts to finish off the third quarter, and Pittsburgh had good field position to start the final period at the Miami 48 following just a 33-yard punt by Larry Seipel. Harris ran for 7 yards, but then Hanratty threw 2 incomplete passes, and a 48-yard field goal attempt by Gerela was blocked. Now, taking over at the Pittsburgh 49, the Dolphins put together another scoring drive. Greasy passed just once in the 11-play possession, as Zonka, Kick, and Mercury Morris carried the load. Kick again finished off the drive with a 3-yard touchdown carry, and Yepremian's extra point gave Miami a seemingly safe 21-10 lead. Now, Bob Greasy can come back, Terry Bradshaw can too. And Terry Bradshaw was back under center on the next drive. And the Steelers drove down the field. They wasted no time, completing a 9-yard pass to tight end Larry Brown and following up consecutive 25-yard completions to wide receivers Al Young and Shanklin. The fourth play was a 12-yard touchdown pass to Young, and Gerela's conversion gets Miami back in the game. It's now 21-7. The Dolphins went 3 and out on their next series and had to punt. Bradshaw was tossed for a 9-yard loss on first down, threw an incomplete pass, and then on third down was intercepted by the great Nick Bonacani. Miami was able to run the clock down to 48 seconds before turning the ball over on downs at the Pittsburgh 9. 2 plays later, linebacker Mike Collin intercepted Bradshaw's last gasp pass, and the Dolphins were winners by a score of 21-7. Miami had the edge in total yards in this game, 314 to 250, with 193 of that coming on 49 running plays. And the Dolphins basically dominated this game as they did later in the Super Bowl, as they did for pretty much 3 years on the ground. Now, Bob Greasy, 3 of 5, 70 yards, no touchdowns, after relieving Earl Morrall, who was 7 for 11. So you can see how much the game has changed. I mean, they threw the ball a total of 16 times. They ran the ball 49 times. Mercury Morris led the ground attack with 76 yards on 18 carries, while Larry Zonka contributed 68 on 24 attempts and also scored on 1 catch. Jim Kick gained just 12 yards on 8 carries, but 2 were good for touchdowns. Tight end Marv Fleming caught 5 passes for 50 yards, and Paul Warfield, thanks to his one long reception on Greasy's first throw, pulled down 63 yards on 2 catches. For the Steelers, both Bradshaw and Hanratty were successful on 5 of 10 passes, and this is a game where you really got to look and wonder what would have happened if Terry Bradshaw would have been able to play the entire game. What happens if that fake punt doesn't work? I mean, there's a lot of things here that contribute. I mean, Earl Morrall getting hurt. They battled through the whole season. I think the Cleveland playoff game was a 3 or 4 point game also that Miami played. And you just wonder, a lot of times winning a championship is more about luck than it is anything else. And Miami had some luck here, but whether they had luck or not, they were a great football team. And they proved that by going in and dominating Super Bowl VII. They won 14-7, but it was really a 14-0 game. And Washington, I don't think even threatened too many times. I don't even know if they got in the red zone in this game. They were completely shut down by the no-name defense. And, of course, as always, Zonka, Morris, and Kick did great jobs on the ground controlling the game. The Dolphins would go on in 1973, Shula said, may have been better than the 72 team, even though they lost a few games. And that was a team that was extremely dominant. And when you look at what they did in Super Bowl VIII to a really, really good Minnesota Vikings team, they beat them 24-7. They basically ran the ball down their throats. I don't even know if Greasy threw the ball even 10 times in that game to win the Super Bowl. So you can see how the game has changed from now to then. But that was on this day, December 31st, 1972, when the Miami Dolphins ran their record to 16-0 with a 21-17 win over the Pittsburgh Steelers. You've been listening to On This Day on the Grueling Truth Sports Network. I want to remind everybody we're here every day with On This Day. Tomorrow will be January 1st. I'm betting it's probably a bowl game, but I haven't looked that far ahead to find out yet. So make sure you come back and listen to us every day at thegruelingtruth.com. You can hear us anywhere podcasts are played, including iHeartRadio, iTunes, TuneIn, Spreaker, Stitcher, Spotify, you name it, we're there. So for now, I'm Mike Goodpastor. You've been listening to The Grueling Truth, where the legends speak.